Hello and welcome GameGuru MAX land. This is your live broadcast number something. As usual, I have exactly 15 minutes to tell you everything that's going on in GameGuru MAX internal development. Hopefully show you a bit of software, get a little bit excited, but mainly give you the opportunity to ask your questions live in the live chat and a little opportunity for me to answer some of them live as well. And any ones I don't get at, I will certainly answer them in the GameGuru forums later on. So if you do ask a question, just put a question mark at the end so I can quickly skim through the live chat, find the questions and then answer them. And hopefully I provide some coherent answers. But first, I want to show you a few little bits and pieces. Not a huge amount. If you remember back here in 2020, we would say release updates every month. By switching to doing updates every week, you can imagine the amount of stuff you get to learn about is divided by 4, as we get to show you little bits as we go week to week to week. So hopefully you get used to the more of a drip-fed situation than a great big avalanche. So the first thing I'd like to quickly show you, you may have noticed my screen resolution is weird and different, and there's a very good reason for that, and I'll get to that a little bit. But what I want to show you now, and I got permission to show you these, we actually sell a pack called the Cold War pack for GameGuru Classic, which is basically running around a submarine silo which can repair submarines, etc. And it's got a nice curvy theme to it. But we thought, you know, what would it look like if, well, like we, say, the author decided what would it look like in GameGuru MAX. And so he kindly shared some of these screenshots. Now, these aren't even the final ones. These were just taking the assets, a few little tweaks with lighting, and drop them into GameGuru MAX. So I've preloaded them into my art package, just so I can quickly show you these screens. You'll notice actually that the lighting is much better, and now you've got reflection on the floors. I've been told that the reflection can be toned down a little bit, but you kind of get the idea. It's the same, it's largely the same DLC. It's just been loaded into Max and it just looks instantly better. And of course, you know, with the plans that we have to work on Max, continuing to work on things like the lighting, and I've already been informed that there's improvements that can be made to, say, the textures, and maybe something to do with dirt maps and a little bit more scattering going on, we'd end up with visuals that are even better. And I'm already happy with these visuals now. If I was running around a shooter game and these were my visuals for my modern FPS game, I'd be more than happy. More than happy. So thanks very much, the author, Wizard of ID, for those who frequent the forums, for letting me show the Max version of the Cold War pack. So more on that, I think, as it comes through. But he's working very hard to make sure that, you know, we do justice to what we can do. We want good lighting, we want good textures and geometry. We want to deliver that level of quality so then you don't have to do all that work yourself and you just jump straight in and make really, really cool looking games. But the thing I want to show you in terms of the software, I'll just drop out of here and run that, is a situation some people will probably have experienced. Now, boom. Already you can see there's something very strange going on. The welcome screen is now bigger. The dialogue is now bigger than the actual screen. And when I go into the software itself, you notice that, wow, these are rather large icons in the toolbar. And there's a big scroll bar here now because you can actually fit it all on the screen. The reason for this is that some systems, I mean all systems in fact, will have a chosen resolution, a display scale that's been set by the operating system, and of course, never forgetting the physical size of your screen. If you're a laptop, it's typically small, 13, 14, 15, hopefully 17-inch laptop, with your desktops having larger monitors, larger physical space. And it all translates down to something called DPI, dots per inch. And up to now, in fact, the build you currently have that we released last Friday, there was no awareness for DPI. We basically did not acknowledge the existence of DPI, and so what you got is what you got. And this is what you would have seen if you were, say, on a laptop with large resolution and a super large display scale. And of course, if you was getting this product out the box, not great. More importantly, not great because we want to make sure that every section is populated with, for example, a tutorial section where you can actually watch a video to learn how this section works. And if that section was actually off the screen when you first started the software, you know, where's the help to tell you where the help is, sort of thing. So we've actually added a new button in the settings, and I must admit, this is the only change, aside from a couple of bug fixes, which will just take as read. There'll always be bug fixes going on from version to version. But in terms of having something new to click, this is it. So enjoy clicking it. It'll be super enjoyable for those people who've been suffering these layout problems. And we look at the size of that. I mean, you don't really need a preview that large on your screen. So we've added this, enable DPI awareness. Boom. Now obviously if you read the tooltips, if buttons are too large you can enable DPI awareness to correct scale, requires a restart. It requires a restart because this needs to be triggered super early. It needs to be, it needs to know it's DPI aware before it like creates its first window or starts creating any kind of visual or display resource. And for that reason, we'll click close, we'll leave the software, and remember how big those buttons and the layouts and things were. So now we're having it with DPI aware and we have normality again. So it's as you would expect. You've got your welcome screen taking up a suitable proportion. You can now see the tutorial section, all the controls without having to need a scroll bar, and the toolbar is about the right size. And so you now have this ability to toggle between DPI. The reason we've made it a toggle is there are situations where you don't want your app to be DPI aware. You're quite happy with, say, having relatively small buttons and having a large area to be able to move all your assets around. Now, it's really down to personal preference, but we felt that out of the box you want a good layout and a good experience and the ability to see your tutorials right away. So that's what we're working on. I'm happy that it's now up and running. Again, huge thanks to Preben, who's a genius. And on Friday, we're going to release this as our Friday build. So you'll, as I said, you no longer have to mess about with large installers. All you got to do is wait around. Sometime Friday evening, you'll get a pop-up which says a new update is available. Click yes. Very, very, very quick update, and then boom, you rerun the software, and then you've got the update. That's how easy it's going to be from now on. So I'm going to go and look for my chat window. I didn't ask this time, first time ever in a live broadcast, I didn't ask whether you could hear me or not. Every time I've asked, the answer's been yes. I'm pretty confident now that my microphone is connected to the software. Of course, that's Sod's Law, which means this is the first time no one can hear me. But I'm going to assume you have. And I'm not going to ask that anymore until I read the chat probably and say, we can't hear you. And then I'll actually change the script. But for now, I'm going to show you what you've been typing. And I'm looking for questions. I'm looking at the clock. We're pretty good. We're on time. We've got a whole 6 minutes to answer questions. We may just yet finish around the 15-minute mark, which will be awesome. So hello everyone. Everyone can hear me. Thanks very much. And please do keep saying you can hear me, even if I don't ask you whether you can hear me or not. It'd be super useful to know that, yes, our broadcast is successful and we can continue to the questions. First question from Bouncy Sky 152. Will Max have any key shortcuts? It's amazing you should ask that. The next build, next Friday, will be all about keyboard shortcuts. Not just about keyboard shortcuts, but we're going to have a really nice layout for them as well. See these down here in the bottom right? They're a bit spaced out and a bit to one side, so I'm going to play around with them a little bit more, but I'm going through the whole software, even the sections that you can't see yet, to make sure that this keyboard shortcut is always available. Just the tutorial gets you started and gives you a bit of a glimpse as to what the section does. At any time you'll be able to see what the shortcut is for the stuff you're doing right in front of you right now. Rather than have a big, I think we've still got it, F1, where you see everything. It's not super useful. I mean, what you're supposed to do, memorize it all. Whereas if you can just get little clues, little things down the bottom right, just think, right, that's the control for that, that's the control for that. You can certainly use these other controls, but when we choose to add a shortcut, we also document it and put it right in front of you. So you don't have to go somewhere, you don't have to go through the user manual, and you don't have to guess. So hopefully that is a good addition and answers that question. Craven, you shot in with question number 1. Will we be able to adjust the settings of the flashlight, such as brightness, range, colour and so on, or will it be hard-coded again? I presume that's what the emoji is. We are going to improve the flashlight. Right now, it's much better than the classic one. It literally does shine a spotlight into the scene, which is really cool because it casts all the different shadows. Would you want to be able to change the brightness, the range, the colour? I think you would. And I don't see any particular reason why we shouldn't offer those options. So I think this is probably going to be in player configuration, because this flashlight is basically built in right now, in terms of there will be a key that you can press in your game unless you disable it, which will conjure forth the flashlight or the torch. And then you want to be able to change that. And there's another thing you've not mentioned, which I've been looking at games. It's like a pattern. So when it projects the light, it also projects it through like a semi-transparent, like a lens, and so it kind of, the lens is actually indicative when it's actually mapped onto the surfaces. I like that too, so I might even throw in image in addition to brightness, range, colour and so on. But yes, I am keen to make sure that that isn't all hard-coded. We don't like hard-coded these days. It's either in an image or it's a script, somewhere you can get at it. Question number 2. I tried to sell a demo and latest build. The wall textures look low res, but the texture size is 2048. What's going on? A number of reasons. There's certainly multi-sampling anti-aliasing that is going on, so it will take a high-res texture and then do blurry things to it. But it could simply just be the ratios that we're doing between texels and pixels that need to be fine-tuned. I presume you have checked the texture, the 2048 texture, and it is a high-res texture. If that is the case, then it is something to do with that pipeline, which gets it from the original texture down to the render. So we will look at that. We do want crispy, high-quality graphics that don't look the slightest bit blurred, unless you want it to look blurred. Here's a question from the Sleeping Warrior. Will GG Max have ambient occlusion settings? Yes. There's ambient occlusion in a number of places within the engine, and we will be exposing them in the editor so you can actually get access to them. I just did a little bit of a scroll wheel and it just moved it quite a lot, so I'm just going to use my scroll bar instead. Rick V has a question for the viewers, so it's not me. I'm not a viewer, so I'm skipping that one, so hopefully you answer that one for him. Here's one from Quaven Quest 3, as in question 3. Will GG Max be getting its own store that's tied directly to the software like Classic? There'll be 2 places you'll be able to get into the stuff semi-officially. Of course, you can get DLCs down the road for GameGuru MAX, but we are going to connect up the... Obviously, we need to make sure that there's a filter for Max assets, but we are looking to connect to the TGC. Well, it used to be called the TGC. It's just called the Asset Store, the Game Asset Store now, that Jason runs. So we'll connect to that just like we have in Classic. But we are looking for other affiliations, other stores, other libraries that we can connect into and get very close into the integrated of the software, so you can just find the model that you want, drop it in and get cracking. And you don't have a lot of conversion and downloads and messing about to do. So watch this space for that. We've got some pretty cool plans there. Here's a question from Super Confidential Man. Is there any progress on the EBE debate? Yeah, quite a bit, and exciting stuff too. However, I won't be able to reveal too much. At a minimum, we are going to keep the structure editor in some form, in the sense that we weren't going to delete it. After the many conversations, it was going to stay in the software as a feature you could get at. Not necessarily front and center, but you could get at it. But since then, we've had more conversations about the structure editor and the possibilities of what we can do with it. As I say, I can't say much more than that, but be a little excited about that. The structure editor is not going away. Looking for another question. This scroll bar is going to be a bit of a pig, I think. How is the terrain nodes, grass and day-night cycles advancing? Day-night cycles, yeah, we have a little bit of progress on there. The terrain stuff, as you've noticed in the last Friday build, and you'll see it again in this Friday build, hasn't progressed much. The reason is we want to go back and optimize what we have so far before we add any more. You'll have noticed the speed at which you can paint stuff, like painting dirt. It's a bit slow. And some of the launch startup time is due to less than optimized terrain data structures. So we're looking to improve that before we take it any further and add that extra functionality. But we have many plans to do, not just that, but more stuff on top of what we have. So again, stay tuned for terrain. Terrain will happen in the next couple of weeks, months. So lots of news there that I can't tell you about. Looking for another question mark. Here's one. No, that's from Rick. He likes putting question marks. I'm going to ignore anything there. Oh, here's one from Max. A Fitzgerald question. When using the EBE structure editor, I find the icons for walls and floor too small. We mark these. Yeah, we're going to be improving that. Don't worry about the old structure editor. The new one probably wouldn't look much like the old one. Maybe I've said too much. Looking for another question. This is from Fearless Wee. Any plans for subsurface scattering for the player's arms and vegetation? Subsurface scattering, for those who don't know, think of how skin renders with a light behind it. And you can see the light almost pushing through the skin, so the skin almost looks glowy. That kind of thing. I like the idea of subsurface scattering. If Wicked Engine supports subsurface scattering, then the answer is more likely to be a yes than a no. But there are no firm plans. It's not on any of my lists to make subsurface scattering a super important thing. There's lots of other things I think that would take precedent over that, and you've got to be watching for it. And if there's some guy right in the distance shooting at you, you're not really interested in his skin looks real. You're looking to survive that ordeal. Here's a question from Lithuanian Mapping. What's the major features of GG Max have implemented for Wicked Engine? Well, just use the software. Just use the software and check out the renderings, go into post-processing, see the things we've got there, look at how the PBR works with reflections and lighting and shadows and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty indicative. If you want a basically massive checklist of everything Wicked Engine has and everything we haven't got that far yet. But we are going to add more things from Wicked Engine to Max. But our goal, and I must stress this, our goal is not to reproduce everything Wicked Engine does in GG Max. We're going to cherry pick the things that we need for the version 1 of GG Max. And then put priority on making sure that it's not just visuals good, but performance and data storage and all the rest of it, including performance and speed, which is super important. I have to say it 3 times. Getting to the end now. I have gone past the 15 minutes mark. I think I'll always go past the 15 minutes mark. I don't really want to follow that 15-minute rule, but I also don't want to take the mick. I know 15 minutes is about the attention span, and you do want to get on and do other things. But I think we can get through 1 or 2 more questions. If there is a question mark, is there? Yes, another one. And when the version of Steam will be available? No clue yet. We want to get a really good early access version ready before we assault the Steam community with. Steam community can be pretty tough, so we want to get it absolutely right before we reveal our cards to the Steam community. I'm looking for a question. This is a new user, first question ever from Don Cathcart. Anyone here come over from Unity? I imagine there are 1 or 2 old Unity members in our community right now. I cannot answer for the people here. But certainly the long-term veterans will have used pretty much every game-making tool. And for whatever reason, they keep settling back in on GameGuru. Maybe it's just something about it I haven't quite put my finger on. But I do appreciate the attention. Here's another one from Bounciest. Will Max allow you to have custom movement methods? You can expand on that question in the GameGuru forum threads later, because we are getting to the end of this. One last question, Matt, before this is the last one. And about the height maps and waterfalls. Probably not looking good for the waterfalls. We'll probably do those as imported objects. So an object that is all the bits of a waterfall with the animations, and then you can maybe add your own spray and particle effects sort of integrated into your map. And height maps, yes, the jury is still out. I'm still liking the idea of having height maps as brushes. So you could have a little tiny one or a massive one and then stamp it onto your terrain. So I have a personal hope that that becomes a main thing. But again, it's not on any development plan. So thanks for all your questions. I have exceeded my timetable, but I think this is better. 20 minutes instead of, say, 28 minutes, which has happened. I'll be broadcasting again next Wednesday at 4 p.m. GMT. And as always, as is my now custom in 2021, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Anyone who's joining for the first time should know we are selling this right now as a pre-order, and you can get 25% off. And having a pre-order means you get access to builds every Friday as we confirm and approve stuff that we're happy with, and we release it to the public. So there's a little bit of a benefit there, and in addition to the discount. So I hope you find that useful. So until next Wednesday, thanks very much for your attention, and I shall say goodbye. Goodbye.